Welcome to the Change Advisory Board, aka the Cab Call. This podcast is brought to you by Nicholas King and Columbia Cloudworks.
It's really fantastic to be back in the studio. We have quite the stack of research to get through today.
We really do. And, usually when we talk about secrets on this show, we're looking at, proprietary algorithms or hidden clauses in a terms of service agreement.
Right.
But today we are looking at a secret that is hiding right in plain sight. In fact, it might literally be hiding in your own neighborhood right now.
That's right. It's one of those phenomena where once you are aware of it, once you know what to look for, you just start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
You might see it on a bumper sticker in the grocery store parking lot, or on a vintage gold ring in an antique shop, or, carved into the cornerstone of a building you've driven past 1,000 times.
It's a symbol, a five-pointed star.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the detail that usually catches the eye and maybe raises the hair on the back of your neck a little bit. It is inverted, 2 points up, 1 point down.
Which, culturally speaking, triggers a very specific association for most people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thanks to heavy metal albums and 80s horror movies, an inverted pentagram screams something dark.
Yeah.
It screams witchcraft or Satanism or just, general bad vibes.
Right.
But the reality of what we're looking at today is almost diametrically opposed to that.
It really is. We are looking at the emblem of the Order of the Eastern Star.
Okay.
And far from being some nefarious underground cult, it is actually the largest fraternal organization in the world where both men and women can belong.
And large is a bit of an understatement, isn't it?
It is. If you look at its history, specifically at its peak in the mid-20th century, we're talking about nearly 3 million members.
Wow.
Even today, with numbers closer to 500,000, it is a massive global footprint. There are roughly 10,000 chapters spread across the world.
And looking at the stack of research for this deep dive, it became clear very quickly to me that this isn't just a social club for people who like wearing sashes and eating potluck dinners.
No, not at all.
It's a complex study in history, in theology, and surprisingly, in corporate governance.
That is the part that I think is going to surprise people the most. It is a case study in how a marginalized group, in this case 19th century women, managed to carve out a high agency space within one of the most patriarchal structures in history.
Freemasonry.
Exactly, Freemasonry.
So here is our mission for this deep dive today.
Yeah.
For you listening, we are going to unpack the origins of the order and how it survived its failed startup phase because it almost didn't happen.
Right.
We're going to decode that star symbol point by point because those 5 points represent 5 very specific and, frankly, very intense biographies of biblical women.
And I want to warn you, the listener, these are not lighthearted bedtime stories.
No?
They deal with human sacrifice, political coups, execution, and grinding poverty.
We're definitely going to get into the gritty details of all of that. And then we're going to look at the leadership structure, the matron versus patron dynamic, which offers a really fascinating mirror to modern corporate boards. So if you're interested in secret societies, women's history, or you just want to understand the code on your grandmother's headstone, stay with us. You're going to have some serious aha moments today.
Let's get right into the history.
We have to set the scene. It's 1850, mid-19th century America. Freemasonry is the ultimate networking platform of the day.
It was the LinkedIn of the 1800s, but with much, much stricter entry requirements.
Right.
And one of those requirements, based on the ancient landmarks, which are the unchangeable rules of the craft, was that you had to be a man, no exceptions.
But these men, they aren't monks. They have families.
Right, and the research suggests there was a growing tension there. Masons talk a lot about brotherly love, relief, and truth. They have these incredibly strong support networks. If a Mason fell ill or died, the lodge looked after him. The Masons wanted to extend that protective umbrella to their wives, their daughters, their mothers.
Sure.
They wanted a way to share the values and the benefits without breaking the rule that prohibited women from being made Masons.
It's a classic exclusivity problem. You have a club that provides massive value, but half the population is completely barred from entry by the club's own constitution.
Exactly.
Enter our protagonist, Dr. Rob Morris.
Rob Morris is an absolute heavyweight in this world. He was a master Mason, an educator, a lawyer, and he actually held the title of Poet Laureate of Masonry.
Which is quite a title.
It is. He was deeply romantic about the craft. He traveled from lodge to lodge lecturing. But in 1850, he hits a wall, literally and figuratively. He's confined to his home in Jackson, Mississippi, with a severe illness.
So he's stuck in bed. No Netflix, no internet, no podcasts. Just him and his thoughts.
And his books. He spends weeks reading the Bible and thinking about this problem of women in Masonry. And he decides to systematize a way to bring women into the fold.
Okay.
Now, we need to be very precise here because the terminology really matters. He did not create co-Masonry.
Co-Masonry being the version which does exist in some parts of Europe, right, where women wear the aprons and perform the exact same rituals as men.
Correct. Morris knew that would never fly in 1850s America. The social conservatism was just too strong. Instead, he developed adoptive Masonry.
Adoptive? That sounds, I don't know, dependent.
It is, by design. Think of it as an appendant body. It's an organization that is adopted by the Masonic Lodge.
I see.
It relies on the Masonic connection for its legitimacy, but it has its own separate rituals, its own stories, and its own governance. It's like a spin-off series that exists in the same universe but has a totally different cast.
So he sits in bed, feverishly writing this ritual. But looking at the timeline in the notes here, it wasn't an overnight success. His first attempt wasn't the Order of the Eastern Star as we know it today. It was something called the Supreme Constellations.
And it was an absolute disaster.
Why? I mean, if the demand was there, why did the product fail?
It was over-engineered. Morris was a poet. Remember, he loved grandeur.
Right.
The Constellations ritual was incredibly complex. It required multiple actors with high dramatic ability, elaborate props, and the organizational structure was just cumbersome. It had failed to scale. It's a classic founder's trap. He built something beautiful that no one could actually use.
It's the Silicon Valley story, right? Great minimum viable product, but the user interface was terrible.
Exactly. The Constellation era lasted about a decade and then just fizzled out. Morris realized he had a great idea, but a really bad delivery mechanism.
So the startup is failing. He needs to pivot. Or, he needs a COO.
He needs an operator. Rob Morris was the visionary. He was the Steve Jobs, if you will, but he needed his Tim Cook. And he found him in a man named Robert McCoy.
The sources say Morris handed the rights to McCoy around 1866. Why did he step away?
Well, Morris had a dream of traveling to the Holy Land, specifically to Jerusalem, to conduct archaeological research on the origins of the temple.
Okay.
He needed money, and he needed someone to take over his projects while he was gone. So he essentially handed the keys over to McCoy.
And McCoy changes the game.
Completely. Robert McCoy was a publisher and an organizer. He takes Morris's raw material, which was at that point called the Rosary of the Eastern Star, and he systematizes it. He creates the chapter system.
Explain the difference for us.
Under the constellation system, it was loose and confusing. Under the chapter system, McCoy created a franchise model.
Oh.
Every chapter operates the exact same way. Standardized rules, standardized rituals, standardized officer rules, standardized books. This allowed the order to scale from a few scattered groups to a massive national phenomenon.
And by 1876, they formed the General Grand Chapter to oversee it all. Although I did notice a quirk in the data. New York and New Jersey aren't part of that.
Right, because McCoy was based in New York. The McCoy ritual took hold there and in New Jersey before the General Grand Chapter was fully established.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so to this day, they remain independent sovereign jurisdictions. They're the holdouts of the merger, essentially. They do things slightly differently, but the core DNA is exactly the same.
I want to touch on the resistance. You would assume Masons would be happy to have a club for their wives, but the sources indicate there was significant pushback.
Huge pushback. You have to remember, Masonic lodges are traditionalist by nature. Many men viewed this as a dangerous innovation. They worried it would dilute the secrets of Masonry, or that if you let women in the door, even a side door, they would eventually take over. Morris was accused of mercenary motives, of selling degrees. It was a very rocky start.
Innovations is a dirty word in that world, isn't it?
It really can be. But Morris and McCoy persisted. They argued that Masonry should be a family affair. And honestly, the social utility was just too high to ignore.
Right.
Wives and daughters wanted to be involved, and the men realized that having their families support the lodge made the lodge itself stronger.
Okay, so the organization is established, the franchise is rolling out across America. Now let's move to the experience itself. If I walk into a chapter room for a meeting in, say, 1890 or 2024, what am I seeing?
You are seeing the labyrinth.
That sounds ominous.
It's symbolic. The meeting room is arranged around a central altar. On that altar is the Bible. Surrounding the altar is a large five-pointed star rug or floor painting. This is the signet.
And before we walk the points of the star, we have to address the elephant or the acronym in the room. The sources point out that written on the central pentagon of the star are the letters FATAL.
Yes, fatal.
Which to a modern eye looks like a warning label. This organization is fatal. Do not enter.
It is an unfortunate linguistic drift. In the 1850s, nobody read it that way. It was meant to be a beautiful sentiment. It stands for fairest among thousands, altogether lovely.
That sounds like poetry.
It is. It's a direct reference to the Song of Solomon in the Bible. It describes the character of the women in the order. Their virtues are what make them altogether lovely. But yes, today it requires a bit of explaining to new initiates who look at the ring and ask, why does it say fatal?
Yeah, I can imagine. So the initiate walks the labyrinth, stopping at 5 points. Each point corresponds to a color, a symbol, and a biblical heroine. And this, to me, is the core of the deep dive. The selection of these specific women tells us a lot about what Morris and McCoy valued.
Absolutely. These aren't random picks. They represent a complete life cycle of female experience.
Let's break them down. Point 1, the blue point. Ada, the daughter.
Ada's story comes from the book of Judges, chapter 11. And I have to be honest, reading this text, it is rough. It is one of the most difficult stories in the Old Testament.
Lay it out for us.
We have Jephthah. He is a judge of Israel, a mighty warrior. He is going to war against the Ammonites. He is desperate for a victory. So he makes a vow to God. He says, if you give me victory, I will sacrifice as a burnt offering the first thing that comes out of the doors of my house to greet me when I return.
No, stop there. What is he thinking? Is he expecting a dog? A goat?
Historically, livestock would often be kept on the ground floor of a house. So yes, he is likely expecting a sheep or a goat. He wins the battle, he returns home victorious, and who comes dancing out of the door with timbrels to celebrate his victory?
His daughter. His only child.
Ada.
It makes your stomach turn just thinking about it.
It does, and Jephthah tears his clothes in grief. He blames her, actually, saying, you have brought me very low. But here is where the story shifts, and here is where the Eastern Star finds its lesson.
Because she doesn't run away.
No. Ada asks him what is wrong. He tells her the vow. Now, most people would scream, run, or argue. Ada does none of that. She looks at her father and says, essentially, if you have opened your mouth to the Lord, do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth.
That is intense.
It is profound. There is a lot of theological debate here. Some argue she wasn't killed, but committed to perpetual celibacy and service in the temple, that she became dead to the world. But the Eastern Star ritual leans into the gravity of the sacrifice.
What is the lesson? Is the lesson that fathers should sacrifice their children?
No. The lesson is integrity. It's about the binding force of a vow. Ada realizes that her father's integrity and his covenant with God is more important than her life. She accepts her fate to preserve his honor.
The virtue is obedience to the spoken word.
Correct. Her symbols are the sword and the veil. The sword that slew her or cut her off from the world, and the veil she used to cover her face so her father wouldn't have to see her die.
That sets an incredibly high stake for the initiate right out of the gate. Your word is your bond, even unto death.
It creates a very solemn atmosphere. This isn't a tea party. This is serious moral philosophy.
Okay, let's move to point 2. The yellow point, Ruth, the widow.
This is a massive shift from the high tragedy of Ada to the grinding reality of economic survival. Ruth's story is found in the Book of Ruth.
She is an immigrant story.
She is. Ruth is a Moabite. She marries a Jewish man who moved to Moab with his family to escape a famine. The men die, Ruth's husband, his brother, and his father. So you have 3 widows, Naomi, the mother, and her 2 daughters-in-law. Naomi decides to go back to Bethlehem.
And she tells the girls to stay in Moab. Go back to your mother's houses.
Orpah goes back, but Ruth stays. And this is where we get the famous line that is read at so many weddings, even though it's actually a daughter-in-law speaking to her mother-in-law.
Whither thou goest, I will go. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God.
Ruth leaves her culture, her gods, her security, and goes to a place where she is an ethnically hated outcast. She goes to Bethlehem. They are completely destitute, so Ruth has to go glean in the fields.
Explain gleaning for us.
It was a welfare system of the ancient world. Farmers were instructed not to harvest the corners of their fields or pick up what they dropped, so the poor could come behind them and pick up the scraps.
Okay.
It is back-breaking, humiliating work.
And she does it to feed Naomi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She is the gleaner. She isn't a queen. She's a worker. She works the fields of a man named Boaz. He notices her not just her beauty, but her work ethic and her loyalty to Naomi.
The virtue here is constancy and devotion.
Yes. And the color yellow represents the golden grain, the harvest. Her symbol is the sheaf of barley. It dignifies humble labor. It teaches that no work is shameful if it is done for the ones you love.
I love that. Point 3, the white point. Esther, the wife.
Now we move from the barley fields to the palace. We are in a political thriller.
Esther's the queen of Persia.
She is. She won a beauty pageant, effectively, to become the wife of King Ahasuerus. But he doesn't know she is Jewish. Her cousin Mordecai advised her to keep her identity secret.
But there is a villain.
Haman, the king's advisor. He hates Mordecai, and by extension, all Jews. He tricks the king into signing a decree that authorizes the genocide of the Jewish people in the kingdom.
So Esther's the only person in a position to stop it.
But there's a catch. The law of the Persian court was strict. If anyone, even the queen, approached the king on the throne without being summoned, they were to be put to death immediately.
Wow.
The only exception was if the king extended his golden scepter to them.
So she has to roll the dice.
She has to decide, do I stay safe in the harem and hope they don't find out I'm Jewish, or do I risk execution to save my people?
And she says, if I perish, I perish.
That is the defining line. She puts on her royal robes, she leverages her position, her beauty, and her status, and she walks into the throne room uninvited. It is a supreme act of political courage.
The symbols are the crown and scepter, and the virtue is loyalty.
Loyalty to one's kindred and people. It's also about using power responsibly. If you have privilege, you are obligated to use it for those who don't.
Point 4. The green point, Martha, the sister.
This brings us into the New Testament. Martha is the sister of Lazarus and Mary.
Now, usually when we hear about Martha, it's in contrast to Mary. Mary sits at Jesus' feet, and Martha is in the kitchen complaining about doing the dishes.
Okay, that's the Luke 10 Martha. But the Eastern Star focuses on the John 11 Martha. This is the story where their brother Lazarus dies.
He has been dead 4 days.
Right. Jesus arrives late. Martha runs out to meet him. She is grieving. She is heartbroken. But she engages Jesus in a profound theological conversation. She says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask.
That is incredible faith.
It is. She affirms her belief in the resurrection. She represents faith and endurance in the hour of trial.
Her symbol is interesting. It's the broken column.
I'm sure you've seen this in old cemeteries. A stone pillar that looks like the top has been snapped off.
I always thought that just meant the monument was damaged.
No, it's intentional. It is a very common Masonic symbol representing a life cut short. Mortality. But for Martha, it's paired with the hope of immortality. The green of the point represents nature, fern leaves, evergreen. It symbolizes that even though the calm of life is broken, the spirit survives.
Finally, point 5. The red point. Electa, the mother.
This one confuses people because if you flip through your Bible, you won't find a book of Electa. You won't find a character named Electa interacting with Jesus.
So where does she come from? Is she fiction?
Not exactly. She's derived from the second epistle of John. The letter is addressed to the elect lady and her children. In Greek, elect lady is eklekta kuria.
Ah, I see. Eclecta becomes Electa.
Exactly. The ritual personifies this elect lady as a specific character, a noble Christian woman living during the Roman persecution.
So this is the martyr story.
It is. The legend woven into the ritual is that Roman soldiers came to her house. They ordered her to trample on the cross to renounce her faith. She refused.
And the consequences?
She lost everything. Her home was confiscated, her family was scattered or killed, and eventually she was crucified herself.
Hence the color red.
Red for blood, for zeal, for love. Her symbol is the cup.
The bitter cup.
Yes, the cup of sorrow that she must drink. But it's also the cup of charity and hospitality. The story emphasizes that before her arrest, her home was a haven for other Christians. She practiced hospitality as a radical act of resistance.
The virtue is patience and love despite persecution.
Exactly. Love one another is the command associated with her.
When you step back and look at these 5, Ada, Ruth, Esther, Martha, Electa, it's a surprisingly robust spectrum of womanhood for the 1850s.
Yeah.
You have the worker, the queen, the martyr, the theologian.
It goes far beyond the Victorian domestic ideal. These aren't women who just sat in the parlor and did needlepoint.
Right.
These are women who took action, they negotiated, they sacrificed, they worked the fields, they stood up to emperors. It suggests that Rob Morris and Robert McCoy had a very high view of what women were capable of.
Which brings us to how the order itself is run. Because if the stories are about female agency, the governance model is where the rubber meets the road.
This is arguably the most fascinating part of the deep dive for anyone interested in organizational design or corporate structure.
Let's look at the org chart. We have a mixed organization, men and women. In 1850 or even 1950, you would assume the man is the president and the woman is the vice president.
That would be the standard patriarchal model. But Morris flipped it.
How so?
The presiding officer is the worthy matron. She is the woman. She sits in the east, which in Masonic terms is the seat of authority. She holds the gavel. She runs the business meeting. She breaks the ties. She is the CEO.
And the man, the worthy patron.
He sits beside her. But he is not the boss. His role is defined as ritualist and jurist.
Unpack that for us. Why is he there if she is in charge?
Remember adoptive masonry. The order's legitimacy, its very existence, depends on its link to the Masonic lodge. The worthy patron must be a master mason. He is there to oversee the ritual work, the conferring of degrees to ensure it aligns with Masonic principles. He is the constitutional lawyer. He checks the boxes for legitimacy.
So he ensures they don't break the rules of the parent company.
Exactly. But he doesn't decide if the chapter buys a new roof. He doesn't decide the budget for the bake sale. He doesn't appoint the committees. The matron drives the business.
This feels like a very sophisticated separation of powers.
It mirrors the modern corporate split between the CEO and the chairman of the board, or perhaps even more accurately, the CEO and the chief compliance officer.
I love that analogy. Let's dig into that.
The CEO, the worthy matron, is responsible for operational excellence. She executes the strategy. She motivates the team. She gets things done.
And the CCO, the worthy patron, provides systemic legitimacy.
Right. He ensures the organization isn't exposed to risk by violating the charter. He provides the cover.
It creates a fascinating dynamic. It allowed high agency women in the 19th century to run a global organization while technically staying within the bounds of social acceptability.
They used the men as institutional cover. It was brilliant.
Don't worry, society. We have a man here to supervise. Meanwhile, the women are running the show.
Precisely. It's a strategy for gaining power in a system designed to exclude you. Find a sponsor, the patron, to handle the gatekeeping so you can execute the vision.
That is a lesson that feels very relevant even today. Find your patron so you can be the matron.
Exactly.
Let's look at the women who use this platform. The membership list is a who's who of American history.
It really shows the reach of the order.
Okay.
Let's start with the pioneer spirit, Laura Ingalls Wilder.
The author of the Little House books.
She joined the order in De Smet, South Dakota. And she didn't just pay her dues, she served as worthy matron.
That makes total sense.
It does. When you read her books, the poverty, the blizzards, the grasshopper plagues, the sheer endurance, you see the values of Ruth and Martha in action. The OES wasn't just a club for her. It was a support network on the frontier.
Then you have Clara Barton, founder of the American Red Cross.
Perfect alignment with the Elect-A-Point charity and hospitality. She literally dedicated her life to the bitter cup of suffering on the battlefield.
And political figures. Eleanor Roosevelt.
A massive figure. She was a member. She used her position to champion human rights.
And interestingly, a male heavyweight, Harry S. Truman.
The only U.S. president who served as a worthy grand patron. That means he was the top male officer for the entire state of Missouri.
But again, even Harry Truman, as worthy grand patron, would have been serving alongside a worthy grand matron who was the presiding officer.
That is a great image. The President of the United States taking a backseat to a woman in the chapter room. It shows the respect for the structure.
We also need to talk about the parallel track here. Because of segregation in the U.S., and specifically within Freemasonry, African Americans were excluded from the mainstream Grand Lodges for a very long time.
Right. This led to the formation of Prince Hall Freemasonry and the Prince Hall Order of the Eastern Star.
And looking at the membership of the Prince Hall OES, it functioned as a serious engine for civil rights.
Absolutely. The Prince Hall OES was a powerhouse for community organizing. Rosa Parks was a member.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And when you view Rosa Parks through the lens of the order, the quiet fidelity of Ada, the courage of Esther to defy an unjust law for her people, her actions on that bus take on a new layer of context. She wasn't just a tired seamstress. She was a woman trained in the stories of heroic resistance.
We also have Maya Angelou and Maxine Waters listed as members.
Exactly. These chapters were training grounds. In an era when women, and specifically Black women, were often shut out of public leadership, the OES chapter room was a place to learn parliamentary procedure.
They learned how to make a motion, how to run a meeting, how to speak in public.
It was a leadership academy hiding inside a fraternal order.
That is such a cool way to look at it. So, bringing it to the present day. Section 5. The modern era. Is the Eastern Star still relevant, or is it just a relic?
Like all fraternal organizations, the Elks, the Moose, the Masons, the numbers are down significantly from the mid-century peak. We are less joining to society than we used to be. But the order is still very active, particularly in philanthropy.
The sources highlight service dogs as a major initiative.
Yes, the General Grand Chapter has poured massive resources into providing service dogs for veterans and people with disabilities. They raise millions of dollars.
They also support medical research.
Regenerative medicine, Alzheimer's research, cancer research, they put their money where their mouth is.
And something called S-Star.
Eastern Star Training Awards for Religious Leadership. It's a scholarship fund for people entering religious service ministers, missionaries, choir directors. It harkens back to the spiritual roots of the group.
If someone listening is intrigued, how does one join today? Is it still just wives and daughters?
The net has widened. Originally, it was very strict. Now, you can be a niece, a granddaughter, a grandmother, a cousin. The connection to a master mason is still required, but it's easier to trace that lineage now. There are also youth groups, like Job's Daughters or Rainbow for Girls, where members can join the order at age 18.
And for men?
Men still must be master masons in good standing. That rule is the bedrock. You cannot have adoptive masonry without the mason.
What about the secret society aspect? Is it hard to get in? Are there belief requirements?
You must believe in a supreme being. It's not a specific religion, but spiritual values are mandatory, and the ballot is strict. It requires a unanimous secret ballot.
Unanimous.
Yes. The members vote with balls and cubes. A white ball is a yes. A black cube is a no. One black cube in the ballot box rejects a candidate.
That is a high bar. One grudge can keep you out.
It creates a highly vetted, tight-knit community. You have to really trust the people in that room. And in the notes, there is this recurring theme of sisterhood and brotherhood as an antidote to modern loneliness.
We are digitally connected, but physically isolated.
Exactly. There is something grounding about going to a physical room, turning off your phone, wearing the sash, and engaging in a ritual that has been performed the exact same way for 150 years.
This brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. We've covered the history, the ritual, the governance. What is the takeaway?
I keep going back to that broken column symbol, Martha's point.
The life cut short.
Yes. But the lesson of the column isn't just grief. It's that the work continues through the survivors. The column is broken, but the foundation remains solid.
That's a really powerful image.
And here's a provocation for you to mull over. We live in a world that worships flat organizations. We want to disrupt hierarchy. We want speed. We want everything to be agile. But looking at the OES, is there something we're missing by abandoning these rigid structures?
You mean the pomp and circumstance?
I mean the structure of mentorship.
Yeah.
The matron and patron dynamic. The intergenerational mixing where a 25-year-old sits next to an 80-year-old and they call each other smolder.
That rarely happens in our regular lives. We are so segregated by age.
We are. Maybe the patron model isn't just an outdated relic of patriarchy. Maybe it's a valid blueprint for separating governance from execution. Maybe we need more spaces where one person runs the show and another person is solely there to ask, are we being true to who we say we are?
A ritualist and jurist for our own lives.
Exactly. Someone to keep us honest to our own ancient landmarks.
That is a fascinating thought to end on. The Order of the Eastern Star hiding in plain sight with a history as complex as the labyrinth itself.
Fairest among thousands, altogether lovely.
Indeed. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.